Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights. They've usually been on some sort of transformative journey, not always, but they're now giving service to others either creatively, they could be a New York Times bestseller, or in the case of today, TV producer, filmmaker, and more from the History Channel quite often. But we've had like a White House physician to the US president, Rear Admiral retired US Navy. We've had the youngest Delta Force operator who studied naturopathy on the side. That's what got him on the show. And boy, did he share a lot. It was incredible. Doctors or physicians, psychotherapists, healers from all sorts of backgrounds and from all over. And again, just a wide amount of diversity, people sharing stories of encounters with angels in human form and much more, sometimes about the cosmos or galactic perspective as well. I got to mention that's kicked in since the spring of 2024. People can now meet Pleiadians, Arcturians, and that may be a lot for folks, but you can just meet angels, a fairy, or just listen to Einstein, or just listen to your higher self, or just catch a little bit of lit sage on this show. What will you allow for is the rub. And with no more delay, we've got just an absolutely incredible guest. She's been all over the History Channel. You know her. Her name's Melissa Tittl, but she's a producer, filmmaker. One of her most recent projects she's going to tell us about was with Dr. Joe Dispenza. She's also an investigative journalist, writer. She's the founder of Hathos Studios, if I said it correctly, but I think I did. And so she loves all things the universe, cosmology, ancient Egypt, UFOs, and more. She's going to share a lot with us. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's great to see you. And I just would like to say, how did you get into all this at an early age? Did you just know?
Um, well, I can tell you what I did know at an early age. I knew that the progression of a human was to end up being an adult and to pay your bills and to go to a job. And I thought to myself, there has to be more than that is all I have to look forward to.
Oh.
Also, my parents are pretty open-minded from a young age. We grew up in a really small town in Wisconsin, but they taught us about every single religion. We would at the dinner table, we would go over the Greek gods and goddesses, and we would talk about history. That was a big thing for my dad. And then my dad for a while was into Buddhism. He was in the Air Force for a while, and then he used his biology degree and worked for the FDA for a while and was into Buddhism. So like we were in a really rural place where there wasn't the ability for people to have access to that information. Plus, um, I'm not 18, so yeah, Google wasn't around to be Googling all these different thought processes or Instagram for that matter. So it was pretty unique. So by the time I got to college, I was kind of like, well, why are all these people so stuck in these really strange belief systems that are clearly not even their own belief system? Because you wouldn't have even the amount of experiences in your life by that point to even hold such a deep belief. It just blew my mind. So I would say that I had the opportunity to grow up in a family that was pretty open, and I just ran with that. And I really wanted to bring to the masses as a journalist more information about their own human potential and what was out there. And by the way, I don't have all the answers, but my job, I feel like, as a journalist, as a writer, as a producer, is to get that information out there for people to decide what is for them.
Can you share with us some of the highlights? Like I have definitely seen you on the History Channel or one of those channels. I can recall you were with another gentleman and you guys were always exploring UFO cases. Sometimes he was solo. I'm blanking on the name of that specific series, but I
Oh,
think it was Ancient Civilizations. It was separate, wasn't it?
no, Ancient Civilizations is another one of my shows, but I know there's a lot of them. UFO Witness is on Discovery Channel,
That's it.
and it's with Ben Hansen, and he's my co-host, and we were like the X-Files, but I feel like he was a little bit more Scully and I was a little bit more Mulder.
Yeah. He did a solo one out to New Mexico where he got tribal permission to go in. I mean, they really gave him the red carpet treatment, and that's a rarity. Can you tell us a little bit more again about where you've been, how you're a producer, how you started your own studio, and so on? Just give us some career flavor if you could.
Yeah, sure. I started out in LA in Hollywood. I think I've worked for every network in some capacity. I even worked for Paramount Studios at a point. Um, I've produced first 5 seasons of Ancient Aliens. I'm trying to think of the ones everyone knows. I did Hangar One, which is also an alien show. That one's on the History Channel. And so is Ancient Aliens. And then I did a bunch of, like, I can't remember all their names, but I've done all these alien shows for Discovery Channel. I was like their girl for like 2 years. They're just like, and Melissa, what does she have to say? And then, oh, let me back up. Just on camera stuff kind of floated in and out of my career. I was really focused on the producing and writing part. I like talking on camera. I think it's a extension of what I'm doing behind the camera, but it's never been like my sole focus. My sole focus is to really dive deep into this research and get it out there and get other people's research out there. So I left Hollywood after 15 years. I something really weird happened, and I kind of said to the universe, okay, what's next? I don't really know. I'm just completely surrendering. And all of a sudden I got a job offer at Gaia, and I became head of content at Gaia for 5.5 years. And then I left there and I started my own company, not wanting to return to Gaia because I just left, and also not wanting to return to mainstream, but being able to dabble a little bit in both, and being in a neutral position as my own studio, Hathos Studios. And that has been a wild ride. I think as a producer writer, you always have a strange boss who's a big pain in your butt, but when you're your own boss, well, you have a lot of other things to deal with. But it's been great. We've done 3 films so far, and we've got a lot of stuff in the hopper that we want to continue. We're actually, I don't know when this is going to air, but we are actually doing a free watch weekend for a movie we did called Code 12, which is about the simulation theory, connection to ancient temples and ancient spiritual texts that kind of reveal some kind of code. That's the 21st and 22nd. It's happening this weekend. And then we also have done this movie called Source, which is Dr. Joe Dispenza's movie. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza has been in a ton of movies and TV shows because he's kind of the face of trying to merge spirituality and science together. And but this is the first time that it's strictly about his work. He's usually a talking head within a documentary, adding to the flavor of whatever they're trying to prove in that documentary. But this is pretty unique because if you've ever seen Tony Robbins' I'm Not Your Guru, it's about Tony Robbins. But this is not necessarily about Dr. Joe. I mean, it's about his work, and that a bunch of scientists at UC San Diego picked up on it and decided to run a pharmaceutical study with people that wanted to volunteer at these retreat centers because it was easy for them to monitor their eating, their sleeping, exactly what their activities were for 7 days, and taking blood samples, microbiome samples, plasma, yes, brain waves, all of that stuff that they could regulate, heart rate, all that kind of stuff. So that is what this documentary is about. I know that some people were hoping it was going to be like The Secret Life of Dr. Joe or something like that, but but in true fashion, it's about the science behind the work. And I really look at this documentary as this is a snapshot into a situation that is happening, that meaning the research on meditation, but it also leaves an imprint for all meditation, for all thought processes, for anybody getting into any transcendental state. The actual evidence that your body is changing from the inside out, and that is really the goal of this documentary.
I think it was the Heal documentary. Kelly Noonan-Gores has been a guest here. She was a lot of fun. People should check that out. I think that was though where he described, and maybe it was where he described his triathlon. He was on the bike. He gets hit by a vehicle and at high speeds, and this whole back situation, how he put his thinking towards healing, never required surgery. Anyone else would have needed surgery. So that's absolutely incredible. I'm sure anything with Joe Dispenza, and especially with your touch on it, is going to be fantastic. People should check that out. Let's back up though and talk more global, cosmos, alien. Are we the only casino on the Vegas Strip? Is it mankind and there's nothing else out there? What is your personal opinion? You're not going public on this quite. We're a small show. Privately, are you allowing for life? Are we the only casino on the Vegas Strip?
I don't think so. I mean, I like to say things in the way that I present them in my research and how I do shows. And that would be, I would say that most scientists would agree with you based on many principles that it's impossible to think that we're the only biological species that exists. And then to further that is to say that we there's no possible way that we are the only species to exist, meaning there could be something that's not biological that is interdimensional, which tons of scientists have been talking about in the last 3 years, have been publishing papers about it or talking about it or being interviewed about it, that if there was an alien race, they're most likely interdimensional and less craft landing in yards and that kind of stuff. That's something quantum physicists can actually agree on. And the idea that there could actually be a species that's not even biological and could be physical, but could be some kind of strange technology, right? That, I mean, that's the only word I can come up with right now. It's probably some other word, but some other configuration that's not made out of the biology that we have on this planet. So all of those discussions have been happening actually for a very long time. And do I have proof that there's one right now here? No, not necessarily, but have these conversations become so big and so prevalent that I think the idea that we are alone is just, that's actually more mind-boggling to me than are we not alone?
So non-corporeal, energy-based light forms instead of life forms. I like to do the little twist on that. Can you share with us an off-camera moment? Maybe you were just at the hotel for the weekend, getting ready to film again, and you had a moment where you're like, I've got no way to explain this. This is one that you haven't told on another show somewhere. Something that you still scratch your head over, hopefully a positive one, and you were like, wow, just wow. And maybe Ben experienced it too, or someone else. Do you have any of those you can share?
Well, we were on a show called UFO Witness, and the show's pretty dark. So if you watch the
Oh.
show, and most mainstream shows about aliens are pretty dark. I mean, it's about them coming to kill us and taunt us, and because they have ratings, right? It's not Ben and I. Ben and I are actually investigating things. But things happen, but for the most part, because we can't see them and because it makes for better TV, it's mostly scary. Um, so I can relate some things. I had one really positive experience, but it wasn't on that show. Well, I've actually had many, but they're not necessarily tied to searching on a UFO alien show. But I have told one of them several times. But I can say on UFO Witness that there was one episode. This is an interesting story because I think maybe a lot of people listening to this have different kinds of practices. They have different kinds of practices of meditation and maybe connecting to everything from angels to ancestors to aliens or whatever. But they also have probably a form of protection. And we really don't know if those things work unless we see evidence of them working. So we're in the field. We're at this place that's supposed to be the next Skinwalker Ranch. It's not Skinwalker Ranch. It's in Arkansas. And terrible things have been happening there for a long time. Mutilated cows, weird stuff, people going missing time, scars, the whole thing. Everything's been happening there. Now, what I'm always concerned about is I don't want to take things home with me. I've got enough drama going on. I really don't need an interdimensional being hanging around my house causing any more problems. So I know we're in an investigation, but I really did not like this place. So I focused on a Faraday cage in gold around me. And I just, as the night fell and we were going on our investigations, we ended up in like an old cemetery. It's probably like thousands of years old. We're in this old cemetery, like waiting for UFOs to come. And I'm like, I so want to be here. So I'm like putting this golden netting, Faraday cage, and I'm just running gold through it the whole time. And I'm like, yeah. All of a sudden, the craziest thing happened. Every single one of our devices that we were using to measure electromagnetic field, to, whatever, went to zero. Now that's impossible because you're always picking up fluctuations in the earth. If some of the devices get too close to the camera or your audio, they spike, right? So it's impossible that these devices are at zero, but they were all at zero. And like Ben was like, what is going on? Everything's at zero. And I was just like, oh, it works. I didn't tell him that till after the show was done filming. And he's like, he's still, because he's more Scully, so he's like, that's impossible. So you don't make a Faraday cage with your mind. But I'm like, well, explain how it went to zero. And that's all that was happening. Like, you can't tell me that like ghosts or aliens showed up and put everything to zero. They most likely would have caused that interference with electromagnetic energy. So anyway, it's a funny story.
I love it. Good one. Okay, and then when did it begin? You mentioned, growing up, Buddhism, your dad, but when did you sort of look to the universe, the stars? Was it a TV show when you were younger? Was it the X-Files? Was it anything when you were growing up? When did that kick in? That part of the romance of this creativity kick in?
Um, um, you know, I don't know. I mean, I always felt something weird. I felt not weird, but I always was really open-minded, meaning it wasn't like it just something happened that caused this fascination and I had to find an answer. Like usually something happens to people and they're like, I have to find out why this has happened. But I don't think I've always been like, oh, this is totally possible.
Hmm.
But I have to say that my focus got really laser focused when randomly I was working on a show where we had for History Channel, where we were combining, where we had a joint deal with NASA, and I think the show is still on Netflix somewhere. It's called The Universe, and it was actually a really smart show. It was History Channel's attempt at educating Middle America on what quantum physics were, but very simple. Like this is how gravity works, right? Like, and we had like people demonstrating, and then it was graphics and it was cool because I'm a super space nerd, so I love the show. And I got recruited from the team that was starting Ancient Aliens, and they had just started. Like the show hadn't even become a show yet. They had History Channel had greenlit 6 episodes at the time, and they History Channel was pretty sure the show was going to fail. Yeah, so I kind of they asked if and they paid really well, and I thought, okay, I'll go over there and do that. That sounds like a good idea. And they said, well, you understand these big concepts, but I got there and I'm like, this is not has nothing to do with NASA. But I was so fascinated. Like I just loved it. I like loved it. I like got it. It like was in my soul. Like it had happened in a past life. Like I knew what all this meant. I knew how it was all connected, and I just needed like hours and hours and hours of time to focus. And then from there, as far as aliens are concerned, if that's what you're talking about, I think that my career just never went anywhere else. It just kept going that way. And I think if you're going to question if ancient civilizations happen to know something more advanced than we do, you would definitely somehow cross into the conversation of aliens. If you do meditation deep enough, you're going to cross into the conversation of aliens and are we alone? That's just impossible. So um, it became part of my voice, I guess, and it wasn't something I was searching for. It was just something that naturally evolved.
And to connect it to angels, it's not something I would have said a year ago, but in March, the very first angel just said, hey, her origin story was Orion. And another one said Andromeda, and another said Andromeda, and another said Pleiades, and then Sirius as well. Not to make this too serious, but it was just some background. They're more light energy form today, unconditional love, just to help out. It doesn't mean regular aliens aren't unconditional love too. If I say love's the fabric of the universe, where does that register for you?
Well, love is the fabric of the universe. But I think what we get are wrapped up in our 3D logical mind is that there's a separation, but there really isn't. There's only really one frequency. There's just different bands. So one band's love, one band's hate, and then there's all the other emotions in between. And it's like, do you want to be on dial-up or do you want to be on high-speed internet? And so if you're all running on the same cord, but you have the ability to translate, or ability to do the high-end amount of internet, or the 5G versus dial-up, you know, what do you want to deal with? And so the heavier the energy is, you're running on a low band. But so love is that higher part of that energy that makes up the universe. But you can't have the universe without darkness. And I think that that's the problem. I honestly think that that's misguided and not taught in these spiritual communities. Everybody's just searching for love and light and holding hands and talking about everything's great and lovey. And that's great because we need to be in a positive place. But if we don't accept or look or understand the darkness, we will just be we won't really understand the light. And so if you really want to be in your full expression of love, you must understand all the bands that go in between the darkest one and the light. And you have to know how to differentiate them and how they all work together, and how you understanding that then can actually change yourself, heal other people, contribute to a collective consciousness in a positive way.
Concisely and eloquently said. I love every word of that. It was brilliant. I've got a NASA astronaut's quote for you to spark some more of that super genius that you're showing us. Here it is. It's Story Musgrave, NASA astronaut, saying, "Getting out of the comfortable path. That's what exploration is all about." Can you talk to us about either your own personal having to get out of the comfortable path for the TV filmmaking stuff, or on this journey of exploration, or something broader?
Ooh. Well, I can tell you, in this career, everything's uncomfortable. How people look at you, you have to be okay with the fact that people not like you. You got to be okay with the fact that you might get it wrong. You have to be okay with the fact that you're not sure how much money you're gonna make. And then you just have to be really uncomfortable with your own fear. Because you can't necessarily interview or investigate a story if you have these deep fears and prejudice against things, because you'll never really present the story in a way that allows everyone to contribute. And then that is really uncomfortable, because you really got to do a lot of work on yourself. And you really got to step back and not take things personal. And that's really hard. And then as far as the journey, I think there are some forces out there, and I'm sure everybody listening to this knows that do not want change to happen. They do not want certain voices to speak. And they, whatever that is, whatever that thing is, we know what it is. It exists, right? It's like an old collective consciousness that just wants to stick around, you know, like a cloud, like in Snoopy over Linus, you know, it just wants to hang out and never leave, no matter how much work we do on trying to change it. And I can tell that I feel at times that whatever that energy is, I have been a target, and that has been really hard, because that target or that energy finds all the holes in you that you have not healed about yourself, and it will make you use it against yourself to destroy yourself. And that on a journey, on a spiritual level, and the things that I believe that I'm here to contribute is very uncomfortable and very hard. And I know there's a lot of people on that journey, but just know you're not alone. and that the only way that you defeat this, this is not a person, this is an energy, is to figure out where your holes are and to work on them. And unfortunately, they only come up when the thing has poked you, and then you've got to work it through. And it's, yeah, it's hard. That is the hard, I could get into specifics. I could say, well, these people are bad and this person has done this to me, but I don't even think it's those people or that person. We all have personal stories about people. But it's the energy working through them, that person isn't strong enough to know the difference between the way that they actually think about you and this energy's thoughts that have come into their mind. And they're using that person to destroy you, to hold you back. And so when people say you have to have compassion for people or send them love when they do horrible things to you, it's because that person is weak because they've let that energy control them. And you can be mad at them for that, because then that hurts you. But it's not their soul. That's not it. It's this energy. And so the energy wins when you retaliate with the anger towards that person. And I think if we really, again, go back to understanding what the darkness is, if we really understand that, we can defeat it. And I guess
Okay, we're adding philosopher to your title list because that was beautiful. Very deep, very eloquent again. And wow, I'll read a quote from an angel that I think is in line with what you're talking about, but not the confrontational or just, look, there's a global slipstream of unconsciousness or unlove, which is usually most of our thinking. We know to the preclusion of possibility, and that limits. And there's a whole nother currency called love. And I'll quote the big Mary, I think she said this like 10 years ago: love is everywhere, love's a constant, open your eyes to find love. I always like that. If I can remember it, like most stuff I can't remember, if I can remember it, it's got to be okay. I'm usually this, and need stuff explained to me 200 times in a row to be like, oh, that's what you meant a year ago. Here's the quote. Sometimes the person next to you or a stranger just needs validation via love and compassion. A smile changes any moment. So too does laughter or a few kind words. Be compassionate to all. Do it.
Yeah. It's just simple.
Okay. What's coming up? Are you allowed to make a wish list on air? Like, who are the 3 people you would love to have reach out to you and say, look, we want to go to the pyramids and do a documentary, and we want you. And here's the white card from some banking thing, and put it all on the white card. Or is it South Africa, or is it a Machu Picchu or some special place? At least tell us some locations for filming. You're dying to get there, and it would be a blast. Or some personalities. That would be cool.
Oh man, I don't even know how to answer that. Wish list. You know what? I don't think I have. I can tell you where I want to go.
Yeah.
If
Okay, fine. It's a filming retreat. It's 100 people who want to get into film, but combine with spirituality. And now you got to teach it from an exotic locale. Where would you want to take people? Greece, ancient Greece?
Like this question. Ooh, that'd be so fun. I definitely would like to go to Egypt. Egypt would be amazing. Greece would be fantastic. I'd say Egypt. I'd say Egypt. I think Egypt's a good starting point. There's so many places in the Middle East, but you can't go there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. What do you think's ahead for you though? For everyone has like poker chips stacked a certain way in front of them. Call it thinking, your value system, just what you're allowing for personal growth. What do you think's next for moving around those poker chip stacks? What do you think's around the corner? Is there anything you've been holding off on for personal growth, personal exploration? Have you been avoiding meditation for 20 years? I don't think so.
No, personal growth. Because I started my own company and I don't have a lot of free time, I haven't been taking. Every teacher needs to be the student, And I feel in the last couple of years running my own company, I've been like, and I need to retreat into a place, into a structure where I'm not that, where I'm absorbing information. I mean, I feel like I do that on my own. I read a lot of books and, I do research and stuff, but I feel that that's a very important thing that I've been neglecting because I've been so busy and I've been so focused. But I think it's a reset and changes your physiology a little bit to be the student instead of the teacher. And so I need to do that. I'm neglecting that about my self-care.
I like this. Another great answer. If we talk about the whole UAP, UFO disclosure push, it's gotten to a frenzied pace. It could be the Pentagon, a FOIA request, this podcast, that expert. It's sort of at the thinking level. Could you sort of talk the way you talked 10 minutes ago, but more on the UAP, UFO disclosure thing? Is it an absolute must that science proves everything and it happens at the thinking level? Or is there something beyond that a little bit that might be happening organically for all of us, like more awareness coming in here? And I know you've got this one down pat. So what's this all about again?
It's so easy. I mean, we as third dimensional logical beings need science for everything. And then science is debatable. So then it goes back and forth. And, this fact can be debated from that fact. But you can tell that science is leading us in a direction of more openness. And so that's a good sign. But the thing is, the thing with aliens, UAPs, UFOs, are they real? What's happening? This is all has to do with our consciousness. This has to do with our acceptance of it. And then it just will appear. It just will be. It won't be like, oh my God, I mean, this is going to be a strange analogy. So, but if you think about propaganda in the old days, I mean, right now, social media is propaganda. But let's talk about the old days, because that probably feels a little bit more comfortable for everybody right now. Let's talk about when we wanted to go to war in World War I, or we wanted to go to war in World War II. We have to build enough awareness where the consciousness creates the villain, creates the outcome, wants to see something happen, and then everybody's consciousness is focused around this activity. So this is something, let's just take United States government, knew that it, like, maybe on a global political spectrum, they needed to assist in World War I, because they had certain deals going on with certain countries, and they needed their resources, and it was part of keeping money flowing internationally. Okay, but they needed to come up with an event that allowed the American public to agree with this consciousness. And so it was, and I'm going to forget, but the sinking of a ship and a bunch of people died, and families.
Lusitania.
Was it Lusitania? Thank you. The Lusitania.
And then Pearl Harbor, and then so on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, right. So then, okay, fine. Now we're all in. We all want it to happen. This is the outcome we want. This game on. All right. So with UFOs and UAPs, we have that for sure. And so you have to step back and be like, okay, well, how do I really feel about this? And it's coming at you anywhere. If you're somebody who's not paying attention and you don't care, you're still going to see it. It's coming out everywhere. So the thought process is they're creating enough momentum so that we decide as a collectiveness what we want to happen. And so it's not up to who's ever standing at that podium on the White House lawn to tell us that aliens are real, because half the population at this moment in time wouldn't believe it anyway. They think, oh, it was a stunt. They shot it in the same studio they shot the moon landing. Like, it just keeps going. So our consciousness, our understanding of how the universe actually works, will release this whole other mechanism in our head to understand interdimensional existence. And this won't even be a thing. But until then, it's a thing.
And are you thinking about, or have you been thinking about doing a book on sort of a lot of there's a thread through all this. Have you been playing around with that? Not that you have any time to write a book, but.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. And then there's too many threads. And then I'm like, well, what thread do I go with? And this would just be too complicated if I throw all that into just one. So yeah, no, I've been flirting around with it. I got to get through a couple projects. And then yeah, I definitely want to, especially with what we found in the movie Code 12. I think that that deserves a book because it really is about what consists of our collective consciousness, and in a very ancient Indiana Jones way of getting all these codes and ideas together. But I think that that plays into the bigger picture of what we are invisibly fighting.
This is awesome. Okay, I'm going to do 3 little exercises. I got the number right. I'm going to blow you lit sage. I'm going to put my hand up in Texas, and you'll put your hand up where you're at, and we'll feel the vibration or something. And the third thing will be I'll just show my energy, my light. And this is something that they did in Celestine Prophecy. But as another guest, Sue Fredrickson, pointed out in the 70s, they were already doing it this way. In India, they do it this way. But with one of these, you'll be able to close your eyes and maybe see your book cover and get that book idea solidified a little bit more. You won't have to tell us about it or anything. We'll just see getting
Okay.
into the flow is getting into the flow. And it hit me, why not? The show then pays for itself. Maybe we'll get you back on in November or December of 2025. First, I got to light some sage. And so to anybody watching the show, we've done this. I think I forgot twice. The guests were so cool. They'd done so much off camera that I got so excited. I forgot to do anything on the show. Whoops, I'm bad. But then there were 2 guests who were really super famous. And, we want every type of guest to feel comfortable, but I forgot to do anything and they wouldn't have done anything anyhow. And then we have 290 something guests that are doing stuff off camera, a little bit on camera, or a lot on camera. It's up to each person what they're good with. So look, people at home, time and space, it's 2030 and you're watching this in Germany, New Zealand, Tokyo, you can still catch the stage. Why not? You got a backache, ask for the energy to go there. Call it plant medicine, call it universal love, consciousness, call it anything you want. But feel what you feel, don't judge. Or in this case, smell what you smell. Let your heart do the connection with the universe. And you may already start tasting it as you're just looking at the flame. We did this before the show just to, be public about it. So we know it kind of works. Melissa, what are you getting for some smoke your way to the East Coast?
Yeah, I can smell it.
Yay. And ask for some flowers. And while your eyes are closed, let's just go for that book cover. Go all groovy, fantastic Woodstock. We'll call it something fun. And just let the universe bring in a beautiful book cover that you're like, holy cow. And then get a vibration that does all the words of it. You don't have to have it unpacked today. Let it unpack over time so you don't feel any pressure. And then one unofficial thing, breathe through your mouth and feel your whole body get into it. Yep. And if you want a couple extra hugs, because it's been a long week, a long month, I think we've all had a long year and we're going to have a rest of the long year. But that's where do you want to put your focus? Wherever you put your focus is where you put your focus, but you have more control over where you put your focus and how you spend your energy than anybody would ever realize these days. You're more light and easiness than you are thoughts if you just give yourself a big break. Less doing. And then come back when you're ready. I'll snub this out so we don't smoke out the screen. Almost snubbed out. There we go. And was that A-okay?
Yeah.
I didn't do it. Okay. And then we'll do the hand thing next. I'm just putting up my hand, not my bill paying side, not my complexity side, the simple, lighthearted dad joke guy. And I will tell a dad joke as we do it. You put your hand up, feel what you can feel. Here's one. Okay, now this isn't, let me do a different one. Got it. Santa's reindeer, Blitzen and Dancer, just those two. Why do they drink so much coffee? Blitzen and Dancer. Why do they drink so much coffee? Because they're Santa's Starbucks. And are you feeling anything on your hand? Does it sparkle, a little warmth, energy?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're going on the record as a producer, a filmmaker. Give me one word of what you're feeling and we pull our hands down.
Love.
Oh my God, thank you. Oh, boom. Fireworks going off. And then I said one more thing. Oh yeah, I'll just show my energy, you see with your heart. It's the aura thing or universal consciousness, whatever. But lately people have been asking the universe privately for something secondary, like something that it's not my light, a heart or something. butterfly. We've gotten 2 phoenixes. It is what it is. It's however you roll. Ask Buddha, ask angels, ask beautiful, loving, galactic, safe beings. They're not going to eat you. When they take you out to dinner, you're coming back. Okay. Here's 2 fingers. You're going to see a stream of light between my fingers. Then we get back to wrapping up the show with some deep, profound thoughts and vision stuff. Okay, here it is. And just see a little flow of light, a filament of light between my fingers. I'm going to do Yoda's voice just to make you crack up a little extra. Do not. There is no try. Okay, now what are you seeing for a color of light or colors between my fingers?
Yellow.
Okay, and then just ask for something extra. You don't have to acknowledge it at all. It could be a butterfly, a thumbs up, a phoenix, a running, somebody got a running buffalo, I think, one way or the other. What do you, we'll leave it at that. Okay, and then lastly, to kind of wrap this up, there's a lot of love and a lot of vibe and a lot of energy. Can you give us a pep talk, how it's all okay, no matter how it's unfolding? How do we kind of go within? It's like a classic treasure map thing with a map and an X on the map, but the treasure is you or me. It's the heart. It's us finding our own treasure within. And this is kind of what I feel like if you do a book is what you're pointing to for all of us. It's right here. It's been there the whole time. And this is like your patented Melissa Tittl pep talk, but we need your pep talk. What is it?
My pep talk. And the going, my pep talk. No matter what the situation, you're only looking at it from one point of reality. And everybody who's in that situation is looking at it from their point of reality. So if you're able to take it out of all of the realities and you're able to look at it from a God's eye view, for the sake of this conversation, you're able to create a whole different reality based on you're not connected to anyone or yourself anymore, the one with the certain reality. And therefore, that is how you create what you desire or how you want to feel, is by taking yourself out of all the positions and creating the new reality around it. And you can't control other people, but you can control your outcome to their reactions. And then eventually it will be a different reaction than they're used to, and they will respond differently. And so that is a basic like self-help, how do I manifest what I want thing. But I think if you take that out and you really start to wonder, well, what about those big questions like, are aliens real, and advanced civilizations, and did I come from Atlantis, and how many past lives have I had? If you just take yourself out of the I want to know reality, and you take yourself out and you're able to look at that collective consciousness of Atlantis or aliens, or and you could see all the sides, the good, the bad, you know, the manufactured, the realness of it. And then you sit on the outside of that, having your own truth. You're going to have your answer instead of waiting for the right person to tell you the right thing, of which then it fits into your belief system now. But the reason you're asking that question is because you want to challenge your own belief system. So that's where we do that self-sabotage thing. When it comes to like our relationships with people in the 3D, or our relationships with things that are interdimensional. And I think that if you're in touch with something, angels, ancestors, aliens, your higher self, and you're asking them for guidance, you're really asking them for that view. So if you know how to do that, if you understand that is the view that you are asking for, you will start to realize that it's not so far away from you. And you don't need other beings or anything. They're just there to help you understand your human potential. You live in every dimension of time and space, that you are all of the things at one time. You're not happy today and pissed off tomorrow. You are happy and pissed off and full of all the good things and the bad things all the time. You're that one level of all the different levels of internet speed 24/7. When you come out to look at that and you're able to say, okay, well, this is what I'd like to experience, then you're in complete control. You're not waiting for the answer. And learning how to do that, that's the journey. that's what all the teachers are for, all the stories, all the books you read, all the retreats you go to, is finding more parts of you to understand how to do that, how to be what you are.
Okay, we're wrapping up here. I'm gonna ask you in a second, but I'm buying you time for a mantra, a final like phrase people could use daily to just walk a smoother path. But first, has anyone volunteered? Have you asked what your galactic background might have been beyond past lives to somewhere far, far out? Have you ever been told? You don't have to share it on air, but has someone kicked out that possibility?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'll throw out the one that I got since spring to buy you more time to think about if you want to say it out loud. Have you said it on other shows yet?
Uh, I think so, but it has a cool story that backs
Ooh,
it up.
do it. Okay.
Um, okay, so somebody told me, okay, let me back up the story. So it was 2015, 2014, 2014. I was living on the beach in LA. I had a place in Marina Del Rey, and I was biking back from somebody's house at night, and I was looking up at the stars, and all of a sudden I got this whole download of this story, and it was so insane. It had nothing to do with any conversation I was having with people in Venice. It was just like it was this whole thing where these three human hybrids came down from Andromeda, and they came down during 1965 during the Vietnam War, landed in the war, categorized themselves as journalists. One was like they were able to they studied human behavior, so they were able to take dead people's clothes off and put them on, and then they knew how to talk. Like they had, but this is their training, right? Because they were hybrids. And their whole goal was to create chaos so that humans they would start these stories or create more chaos so that humans could start to think for themselves. And it was this whole craziness. And I thought, what a cool, as a writer, I'm like, God, that's a really cool thing, because the Vietnam War was an impetus where people all of a sudden started to look and be like, why are we doing all of this? Like it was cool. So I'm like, oh, I'll play with that. So I wrote this whole story, and they were in connection with their commanders, and they weren't supposed to do anything that was non-human, because then they would be detected by the reptilians that were running the planet, and then they would be in danger of their life, and then they would be in danger with the Galactic Council. This is 2014. I don't know where all this came from. I'm going to get to the point that they would be in trouble with the Galactic Council because they're not supposed to have secret missions happening on Earth. None of the races are. They're supposed to leave it to the reptilians until the Galactic Council can figure out a total intervention, right? So what does one of the characters do? The main character falls in love with one of the captains of this platoon, and she saves him. So she uses all of her power. He's like filled with bullets, saves him. And of course, that sends out a vibration on the planet that something non-human is here. And so now they have to do their job, and they're cut off from the Galactic Council. They're stuck here on Earth, and they're afraid. They have to blend in because they don't want to be caught by these reptilians that are now hunting them. So I published this as a comic book. It went nowhere. It like nowhere. Like it wasn't anywhere. There's nowhere you could buy it. I forgot about it. It's in my garage. Whatever. So I'm working at Gaia. This woman comes in. So this is 5 years later. This woman comes in and she goes, "Oh, you're an Andromedan." And I'm like, "What?" And the crazy thing is, when I wrote that, I didn't know where Andromeda was. I didn't know if it was the galaxy or the star. Like I had no clue, never in my zeitgeist, never in my consciousness, whatever. And I didn't even know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? Like, what kind of person am I? She's like, well, yeah, that's my backstory.
I love this. I'm going to put up some photos. We're not doing anything with the photos, and I've got to cheat and look. I got my background given to me, but like I said, I'm short on all details. If I don't know much, I'm better off. I stay out of people's questions and answers, let them do their own direct listening. I've got mostly Pleiadian, Andromedan, and some Sirius. Again, not to sound too serious, but in March, and I've been doing this 13 years, one of my business managers, Archangel Michael Charlotte, and there's a Rebecca who's from a galaxy so far out where music came from. But she said Orion for her background.
Mhm.
Max said Pleiades with some Sirius, I think. I got to look it up. I wrote it down. I can't remember that one. Joy is really cosmic, so she's everywhere. Like light beings or archangels are really broad. That would be her. when Big Mary said, again, love's a constant, open your eyes to find love, that's joy. Just bump it up a notch for vibration. But Andromeda and another Andromeda, Penelope, you can see a smiley face in there. And then fairies, domestic, US, local, down to earth, and then one Sirius, just to put that up. So again, I think it's an adjustment for everybody that it's a big Vegas strip with a lot of different casinos, and not all of them are, big bright lights and everything else. So what would you want to leave us as a final reminder? It could fit on a t-shirt or maybe not, maybe the front and back of the t-shirt. What's a final good mantra to stick with so we can stay open and moving forward?
Oh, mantra, man, you put me on the spot.
Yeah, no, this isn't an easy show at all. I'm sorry about that. It is, and it isn't.
A mantra.
Or just a reminder.
I don't know. The only thing that comes to me is something that I used to say on a podcast that I used to do, and I used to say, things just got weird. I just think things are weird. To just like embrace it. It's super cool. Like I don't know. That's all I can think of because it really encompasses everything. Even love is weird. Just think about it. It's just weird. Everything's weird. It's weird and it's awesome. So things just got weird.
Melissa Tittl, you've been awesome for the show, and it's not been weird. It's been really good, very smooth, and thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It's been a treat.
Thank you so much for having me.